I'm Clint, and on this episode, we're going to be doing a blind portfolio review. That is, I've never seen this portfolio before. I have no idea what images we're going to be looking at and what topics we want to be talking about. Let's dive in to see. So this is the way it's working. I compiled all the portfolios that have been submitted for consideration, which there's 95 currently, and I ran a random number generator over here on my iPad in order to figure out which one we're going to be looking at. And that ended up being Shriver's Art. Here we have the guy's, I think it's a guy. Let's check. Yes, it's a guy. Okay, so here we have the guy's artwork, and we're going to just take a second and browse through this. Right, we don't have a lot. Looks like I can just go through each image individually, browse all. Okay, so that's all he has. He has the 9 images here. All right, and that's pretty much a full view on them. Cool. So he's got a couple of things really going for him. I like this style. It has a sort of realism, but it also has a very graphic quality to it, where things are being simplified. Like, he didn't draw what an actual feather or wing would look like. It's an interpretation of that. It's a simplified version of it. Take a look at this one. It's probably one of the strongest pieces that really shows the style. This beautiful profile of the bird and all these things going on. I don't know what's going on in this scene, but I'm interested. You also see a very strong control of the values, very strong control of colors. They almost all use a single color that they're rooted around, except for this one. It has a sort of blue-violet, blue-pink dynamic going on. Everyone else has, if I'm not mistaken, it's Demon Hunter from Diablo. Okay, yeah, I think that right. What I'm going to do is go ahead and just pull some of these over to my computer, and we'll open them up in Photoshop and talk about some ideas. Pull them all in Photoshop, just put them in the same file, different layers, so we can flip through them easier and work with that way. What he's doing right, as already said, good shapes, colors, composition, lighting, all those things are good. So he's moving beyond the fundamental issues and making the common fundamental mistakes. Now we're talking more about style, and we're talking about just the look of the image and a couple of just execution, how he executes various parts, and some things that he might think about. Let's pull up this one. This one gives me a little concern and showcases something that I'm thinking about. These characters in the background aren't really well done compared to the rest of the scene and some of the other artwork. They just look more unfinished, like they're not defined well enough, like he blocked them in and then never went back and cleaned them up. So it really should probably go one of two ways with these background characters on this one, which is either just treat them like silhouettes so that you get something like this, where you just have the shapes of the things. And I think it's possible that you could do that with this. Let me see if I can clean it up a little bit. These guys have horns, and they have a sort of silhouette that you could read as being, you know, goblins or demons or something. So you could probably do that without too much trouble, is to give them cleaner silhouettes and just leave them at that. They don't need any detail in there if you have good enough silhouettes for the characters. That's option one. Option two would be to approach it the same way that he did on this one, which is here. Take a look at the way he controlled this. This is a very good technique where essentially he's using 2 tones in order to do this background character. It still gives you form for the background character, but it doesn't give you more information than you really need. This front character hardly has but maybe 3 tones, the light, the middle, and the dark, and this just has 2 tones. It has a mid and it has a light, but it doesn't have a dark, which keeps it sort of pushed into the background. So you could do the same thing to these guys. If you don't want to go into the full-blown lighting like you do on this character, which I really wouldn't suggest because you do need to keep them in the background, and keep it just to the 2 tones, and try to do it back here. So the light is either hitting something or it's not, and there's really no midtone. It's those two options. Everything else is flat. So you can give the impression of form by doing one part lit, one part shadow, and that's it. Simplifies it, keeps it graphical. You get nice angles back there, which would probably work well in this image. Another thing going forward, where I think eventually might be better for the artwork, is looking at going even more graphical with the look. Most artwork would not do well to go this way, but let me pull up an example over here. Some other artists that kind of go this direction that, let's see, I've got it around here somewhere. James Jean, let me pull up some of his stuff. This sort of thing. Part of it is more on the realistic side, plenty of form, plenty of shading, but he throws in these graphical elements such as the leaves in the background. I see a lot of similarities between these, although they have different rendering styles. This has like a sort of watercolor traditional look to it, but combining the 3D, combining the graphical nature with these 2D elements, I think gets really close. And that's something that I would think about probably in the background of like this image, is if these clouds were actually treated as almost 2D elements. And you can even use, lines in the background for the clouds. I mean, literally have lines for the clouds going, between light and dark to make these things. That could be really interesting, so that you have the combination of flat lines, completely graphical things, and then your more well-rendered 3D and lit things in the foreground. I probably have some more examples. Oh, here's a really good one. I keep a folder that has different styles in it. The other program can open it. There we go. Well, I can't open it in Photoshop for some reason. But this is really close to what I'm thinking about. And he might want to consider this. See how 2D these are? See how graphical a lot of these background elements are? The trees in complete silhouette. Just the graphical nature of the, two-tone, three-tone, four-tone elements with the explosion, the complete silhouette graphical style of this. And it allows you to use these really popping colors and really dynamic shapes. And that's one of the reasons it would work well for his art, is because he already thinks in terms of graphic and shapes and big blocks of color. So I would suggest running in that direction. Elsewhere, again, like here, you're doing the clouds, and the clouds are drawn with lines, and then each section of the cloud has another line segmenting it, and each section has its own tone, right? So it has distinct planes to the clouds. I think that if this was my piece, that's how I would run with it. Same thing for back here, that you can already see he's going that direction with the leaves in the background. He goes completely flat with them. And I would suggest going the direction that the other piece was, which is you can have the trees back there, and you don't necessarily need to treat them realistic. By the time it gets that far in the background, everything is just stylized into the concept of what it would be, rather than actually drawing the thing itself. Again, I think lines are completely appropriate in this kind of artwork. And in a lot of my videos, I say, get the lines out of realistic artwork. This is an exception. This is one that you literally could use lines and it would work just fine in the piece. You could, do these leaves with lines around them, and it would give a very interesting look. And maybe even put lines around, some of these sorts of things in order to draw the attention to places that you want. Things like getting a little light, back up under here just to bring this out. You can do almost like a stroke around your subjects in order to help them pop a bit more. That's something that could work really well in his artwork. I mean, I do it a little bit in mine too. I'm a little more subtle at it because I'm trying to go a little more realistic, but that sort of thing could work well in his, as well as, you know, you would come up here and darken the top of it. But that is the direction that I would go with this artwork. Don't really have anything else to add to it. It's beautiful artwork. It's not, he's not making serious, you know, fundamental mistakes in his artwork. It's more about what can you do to push it even further. I would say that he needs to just double down on what he's already doing right and run with that direction. I wish him the best with it. And of course, if you want to add your portfolio into consideration for a future episode, it's as easy as just leaving a comment here in the YouTube and have a link to your portfolio. Say, hey, I'd like you to add this for consideration, and I will put that on the list. If you've enjoyed this, please check out my other videos. Don't forget to subscribe and share the video. And if you want more in-depth training and videos, then become a patron, which is at patreon.com/swatches. I'm sure I'll have the link in the description. And until I see you next time, keep drawing.